Andy, I know you've never been happier than when you're sitting by a warm fire, snuggled up in a flannel and basking in the glow of an old-school budget spreadsheet.
It is a special day I can shut down the world for a little me time.
In a world full of applications, why do these antiquated documents and spreadsheets still run the world? And why haven't they been updated in over 50 years? That's why we want to talk about Coda.
Coda is a new kind of doc that brings words, data, and teams together. It comes with a set of building blocks that anyone can combine to create a doc as powerful as an app.
Coda runs our entire business here at True Story FM, from show scheduling across dozens of podcasts and scripts for thousands of episodes, to budgets and plans and wikis and more.
Coda lets us see our business in a new light. If you'd like to shine a light on productivity in your business and save money along the way, check out Coda today at thenextreel.com/Coda. It's hard to believe that we've been having in-depth weekly conversations about movies since 2011.
So many great conversations over the years about so many great movies. All that said, producing this show week after week requires a ton of work behind the scenes.
Becoming a Next Reel member gives you access to all sorts of additional and exclusive content. Plus, you're helping us keep the lights on. Just head to thenextreel.com/membership, where you can learn more about becoming a member, which costs a measly $5 a month, practically the same as one fancy coffee drink. And you get so much more.
Every month, we record a bonus episode exclusively for members. Those episodes cover movies from whatever series we're covering at the moment, or add to previous series.
Some movies we've covered that only members get to hear us discuss include The Blues Brothers,
The Russia House,
Naked Lunch,
Independence Day,
The Hot Rock,
and Relic, the better one. Plus, members get to vote on what we're going to discuss for those episodes.
We also record additional pre- and post-show content in regular episodes that only members get to hear,
like conversations about similarly themed movies.
And answering listener questions from our live member chat.
Speaking of our live member chat, we record almost all of our episodes in Discord, where members can chat right along with us live.
Members get access to other members-only channels in our Discord community as well. On top of all that, members get all episodes a full week earlier than everyone else in a private Next Reel feed just for them that includes all the shows in the Next Reel family. The Next Reel, the Film Board,
movies we like, Sitting in the Dark, and more new projects on the way.
To top it all off, members don't have to listen to ads. We've already eliminated those annoying, dynamically inserted ads that, let's face it, we all hated.
We are listening to you.
We love podcasting for a living, and those ads help to pay the bills. Now, we're counting on you, dear listener.
We promise we aren't going back to those terrible, dynamically inserted ads that don't relate to us at all. All we ask is that you consider supporting the Next Reel family of podcasts with a membership.
Again, it's $5 per month or $55 per year. Just head to thenextreel.com/membership.
thenextreel.com/membership. Get your access to early, ad-free episodes with bonus content, member bonus episodes, and access to member channels and live streams in Discord by signing up today.
Welcome to Take 10.
Welcome to Take 10. This is Kyle Olson from the Marvel Movie Minute. With me is my partner in crime, Rob Cabasco.
Hey, what's going on?
Hey, so we've this is only the second episode, so it's okay if you have no idea what's going on. This is something that we do that we thought would be fun to service a need. Like we last time Disney Plus was brand new, and so we thought, hey, let's dig into a little catalog and give people something to do when they're done with, at the time, the one episode of Mandalorian that was on. Right. So now we're doing the same thing. So we figure a lot of you right now are subscribing to HBO Max for the very first time because of Wonder Woman 1984, and also the fact that Warner Brothers is now going to do day and date for the rest of the year with all their new releases, and that's fantastic. But while you're sitting there, as opposed to just letting your subscription sit idle, while you're waiting for those new movies to drop, we decided we were going to go dig down into some of the really cool stuff that's hidden inside of HBO Max and let you have it. So it's called Take 10 because I have 5 picks, Rob has 5 picks, and so there's 10 there. And then actually our list spilled a little bit over, so there might be some bonus ones that we're going to get to as well because I had trouble sticking to my 5.
I did too. Yes, there will be more than 10, but that's okay. And we talked about this. I mean, what's nice about this show is we only come out with an episode when we have some really good content to talk about, right?
Yeah,
which is
all killer, no filler.
Yeah, right. And look at, and I mean, last time we did Disney Plus. This time we're doing HBO Max. I'm sure we'll do some other streaming service maybe someday in the future.
Yeah.
Look, we are not we're not salespeople for any of these services.
No, not at all.
No, we're not endorsing particular anything. We're just saying,
no promotional fee has been paid.
0, but we are listening if anyone is interested.
That's true. Yeah. We're not above that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean,
we're just not big enough to get their notice.
No, exactly. But no, this is just an opportunity to kind of say, look, with these times and the times are what they are, you're probably spending a little bit more time watching streaming services. If you particularly have this one, then here's some things that I think we both think you'll find interesting beyond the usual release of the week or the month with HBO that they get with their movie stuff.
Or the stuff that we assume a certain level of media savvy with you. Like, we're not, like, on neither of our lists will be Game of Thrones or Watchmen or Westworld. Like, those are all terrific shows, but you know about them. Okay. They've done a pretty good job of getting those. Oh, I'm sorry, did I take one for you?
So, welcome to Take 7. And we're not... No,
No, wait. We're good. I assume when you subscribe, you're like, oh, I'm going to sit down and watch one of these shows, and those shows are great, but they're also not for everyone. So right. I mean, there's a lot of people I would not sit down and say, oh, you need to watch Game of Thrones. I mean, there's that period of time where that was like everybody was doing that, and there was a whole segment of the population that were like, ugh, Game of Thrones, whatever.
Right.
So. Right. We're not here to convince you that Game of Thrones is a quality show or not, or that Westworld is good or not. That's on you. Tastes may vary. I'd say the nice thing about having a subscription like this is it's a buffet. Like, take a little bit on there. Try the first episode. Like, I particularly enjoy all those shows, but, everybody has their own different things. However, I watched about half of The Sopranos and went, eh. Like I didn't get
understood.
It. Like that wasn't for me. Like I recognize the quality of the show, but
sure,
not really something I really wanted to spend all my time with. I don't know.
You know what?
But if with HBO Max subscription, you can enjoy it as much as you want. You can watch the whole season.
Great point though is I think what you find is on shows like The Sopranos, even Game of Thrones, they are more connected to the time that they came out than you realize. Yeah. And so when you're going back to something like that or Deadwood or something, your mileage may vary now. So and some of this will happen with probably some of our picks. Speaking of subscriptions, though, just in case you're wanting to know, okay, I'm up for Wonder Woman 84. I want to see all of Warner Brothers movies in 2021. What am I going to pay? Right now, HBO Max is $14.99 a month. They do offer a 20% off if you prepay for 6 months, or. And this is something I think some people miss, and I joke about it whenever talking about them because I don't pay anything. Why? Because my entire family is on AT&T, and with certain unlimited plans with AT&T, because they are the parent company, you get it for free.
Beautiful corporate synergy.
Unbelievable. So kind of take a look and see if this is something that, if you don't already have it, if you'd want to.
When you hear us talk about it, any of the free weeks anymore because of the big announcements. Like it's sort of like you're in.
No, these days there's no more value other than give us your money. You get to watch Wonder Woman.
And it used to be very expensive in terms of that, and then Netflix raised its prices again, and so now it sort of comes in the middle of the pack. Like it sort of goes from Apple TV pricing wise at the bottom all the way up to Netflix at the top. So HBO Max now sits somewhere in the middle. Okay, so let's get into our list. So why don't you take the first one? What do you got to tell the good people about?
So my picks, and this was a launch title, but I think it's kind of gotten forgotten about. And my daughter and I really loved it. And I'm just going to preface this by saying, in my picks, my first one is positive, my last one is positive, my middle ones are a little bit darker. That's why I went with positive. But there is a wonderful little show that they did with the Sesame Street people called The Not Too Late Show with Elmo.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Check this out. It's 13 episodes. They're only about 15 minutes each. And yes, it's Elmo, being a talk show host, very much in the vein of Jimmy Fallon or Stephen Colbert. And it's really adorable. I mean, it's the perfect tongue-in-cheek that Sesame Street, the workshop, people have in sort of wink, wink, nudge, nudge to older audiences. And at the same time, I mean, honestly, you'll just have a lot of fun with it. And they had some great guests. John Mulaney, Pentatonix, John Oliver, Andy Cohen, Olivia Wilde, Jason Sudeikis is on actually the final.
Ted Lasso.
Yes, a show that we love.
Which you will not find on HBO Max.
No, you no. But it's honestly, it's just really fun. And they did a nice job. If you want to reminisce about Sesame Street, you'll really enjoy it. It's fun.
All right, nice choice. Yeah, and HBO Max is the home of Sesame Street, so you can see not only like the last couple seasons, but also a bunch of classic ones too. So, and I found those have not aged very well either, because I sat down with my then 6-year-old and showed her some of the new Sesame Street, and she loved it. And I showed her some of the ones that I grew up on, and she was out the door. Like the rhythm of the shows has changed dramatically.
Well, our attention spans are different.
Yeah.
Thanks, internet. Anyway. It's all right.
All right. So my first one is Game of Thrones. No. Kind of. Okay. So you can have your own opinions about Game of Thrones. Obviously, it captured the imagination of the nation for a short period of time. People don't think it's really stuck the landing, and that's a different conversation. But one of the things that cannot be argued is the amazing scale of the production. Like the fact that they were able to shoot this show in 3 countries simultaneously with people going back and forth and everything. So we get to see a little glimpse of that in a special they put out right for the last thing, and it's called Game of Thrones: The Last Watch. So even if you were not the biggest, if you'd ever watched the show, if you're not the biggest fan of the show, if you're like me who liked the behind the scenes stuff, like my wife and I love Lord of the Rings, but we really love the behind the scenes and seeing all this, how they've done it. We've watched the behind the scenes on all the expanded editions multiple times. That's how much we like it. This is great because this is like a 2-hour movie that shows the sheer scale of the production. And it does it in a really cool way because it's not about following the show creators or following the actors. It really gets down to the people on the ground. So one of the big stories is about the person who ran the catering. Like, how do you feed this? This is like basically like 3 armies in different places.
Wow.
How do you feed them all? So like they focus on, or the person who did the costuming, or one of the guys who was an extra, and actually they liked him so much they kept using him. So he died like 3 or 4 times over the course of the series because they liked him so much they brought him back, put him in a new wig, had him get stabbed by a different character, and then he'd come back again. And then they talk a little bit about like as he knows that this was probably the only job he's ever going to have like this. What do you do now? Like when you're a featured extra on the biggest television show of all time and that show ends, what happens to you? Like, so they talk a lot about that. So it's a really, really interesting story about a massive, massive show, but they do it in a microcosm so you can see how it affects these individual people and watch how hard these people work. So yeah, it's a fascinating documentary, and it's a really great peek behind the scenes at how this show was done. So Game of Thrones: The Last Watch.
Nice. Now, is it filmed throughout the entire run of the series, or is it just focus on a certain development period?
Yeah, some of it, but mostly it focuses on the last couple episodes. As they're sort of wrapping up and closing everything down. But they sort of tell people's story about like, oh, I was hired here, and they show like little bits along the way, and then they get to sort of the big wrap party at the end too. And in case you're worried, yes, you do see the celebrities. Like it's like you will see all the actors at various times too. Like it's sort of casually through, but they are not the main part of the documentary, which I think is what makes it really super interesting.
I think that's amazing that so much time and effort and resources are spent on documenting the production of these kind of movies.
Yeah.
We've seen this in like
stuff. I was afraid it was going to go away when sort of we switched from Blu-ray to streaming.
Exactly.
I really
right.
was sad about that. But now it seems like they realize people have a real hunger for this stuff.
This is awesome. That's fantastic. All right, so my next pick, and this is two different series, but I'm going to put them together because they're kind of the same thing, and they've sort of been back to back.
Okay.
So HBO has been known to be a phenomenal developer of documentaries, and not just the one you just talked about, but like ones that tackle really tough issues, really serious things. I got caught up in watching The Vow, and The Vow is a documentary about it's a true crime story of this cult called NXIVM. It was big in the news in the last few years, especially in late fall of 2020. And I got totally sucked in. It was unbelievable. It told this whole story from the perspective of some of the people who got involved in this, unfortunately, and their struggles. The two people of note I would mention that are in it that are heavily featured is Catherine Oxenberg, who is a famous American actress from the 80s, I believe, Dynasty, maybe a few other shows. Okay. Her daughter was involved in this. And Bonnie P.S., I might be pronouncing her last name wrong, she played a young Aunt Beru in the Star Wars prequels.
Ah. And so of course, the biggest celebrity name attached to this would be then Allison Mack,
yes,
who was the star of Smallville for the entire run. I think she's all the way to the end.
She was right up there with Clark Kent's character. I mean, they were actually the main characters of that show for the most part. And I'll tell you what, it's why would you watch this? This is horrible. This is about a sex cult and all this horrible pain and craziness that it caused. What they do in this is that it's not just about the aftermath and the stuff that goes on. They really go into how did people get caught up in this? And everybody who gets caught up in this is normal. They're just like any of us. And they just do an amazing job exploring it. I know there's been some controversy about this because there's another series that is coming out on another network that involves some of the other people that were not a part of this one. And for all transparency purposes, HBO has announced there is a season 2 of this show coming out. And you'd say to yourself, what? How is there a season 2? The guy who was the head of the cult is now in prison. And he is, I guess, going to contribute. They're going to interview him from jail. And maybe Allison Mack, the rumor is that maybe she might be involved in the second season of this. Wow. Again, why would you watch it? It's just because it's a wonderful, detailed study of human psychology. And honestly, if you want to know how people get caught up in cults, because that might be appropriate information for these times, that you could learn like what makes people tick, and that includes all of us.
And as someone who is not into documentaries, I actually found an HBO documentary that I really, really got into. So that I'll use that for my next pick. So this was a story that like sort of came and disappeared for a while, but then they now did a documentary, and I thought, well, how are you going to make an entire documentary about this one stupid little story? And so it was one of those times like during quarantine, and we had HBO Max, and we decided to just try the first episode, and then got absolutely hooked so much so that they even roped in my 13-year-old daughter and got roped in. That was a little story called McMillions. So McMillions is the story of how, through the late 90s and early 2000s, the McDonald's Monopoly game was rigged. For the last 5 years they ran it, not one person who won anything was actually a random winner. They were all chosen by someone. The story they tell is fascinating. It goes over multiple episodes, and they always find a way to end on a cliffhanger where you're like, wait, what? So they go all the way back from the original FBI tip, and you meet the FBI agents who are investigating it, and then they go through, and then it gets involved in organized crime and family and land deals and over close to multiple states, and it just this whole web of conspiracy gets bigger and bigger. And the biggest question is through the whole thing is, how the hell did they do it?
Yes.
Because they show all the security measures they took, and how is it that someone on the inside got all of the winning tickets from under the noses of everyone who was creating this and had them and was able to give them out year after year after year. So you don't actually, that one, they tease that out over the end so that before you understand the full story, then they tell you exactly how it was done. It's masterwork in terms of storytelling. I've seen a couple documentaries before that hour and a half, and you're like, okay, this is over course 6 hours, and every episode was riveting because you're it's like The Sopranos or any of these big dramas. You're following every character, and someone shows up and you're like, oh, there's that guy again. You remember them and their story and how they're connected to it, and then you find out they were actually lying about this, and they actually were over here. And it becomes this huge, intricate web. But they're very clear in their storytelling, so you never get lost in it too. So yeah, it's, as a person who does not like documentaries, I entirely got hooked on that one. I should say I don't like documentaries usually about true crime. I say my documentary stuff that I'm interested in is usually pop culture.
Oh yeah, well, I understand.
Yeah, which HBO also has a good selection of that stuff as well.
Well, there may be another one on my list here too. Well, no, you know what? Was that based on a podcast? I forget McMillions.
It was a novel, I know.
Oh, okay, maybe. Right.
And then, so maybe they probably did a podcast as well. And I believe it's actually now being developed as a feature. Yeah.
No, that's a great pick, and it's a great story. Okay, so I am gonna go again documentary on this one, but this one's a much more lighter heart. Well, half and half. If you grew up in the northeastern part of the United States in the 1980s, you more than likely heard about an infamous theme park that was in Vernon Township, New Jersey. And I can distinctly remember this. I can tell you this. Growing up in northeastern Pennsylvania, I remember my brother and I watching the commercials for this. And I remember us both thinking, oh, that place looks amazing. And also knowing there was no way in heck my parents were going to take us there because it looked ridiculous. The park was called Action Park. And the documentary, which came out this year in 2020, is called Class Action Park. It is, and this is not a multi-episode one. This is a one and done. This is about an hour and a half, I'd say. And it is just an incredibly funny, serious, because obviously there were people hurt at this park. And if you don't know, the story is Action Park was just run by a guy in New Jersey. He bent a lot of the rules, didn't really have any safety protocols, let kids run the park, and he kind of sort of paid off all the township people so that they looked the other way. And crazy stuff happened. And if you want to know one of the crazy stories I can tell you is they had an area in the park where they had golf carts that were made up to look like tanks with chicken wire on them, and had baseball shooters mounted to the front of them that would shoot tennis balls at each other. And you would run around, you would drive your tank on this big area and shoot tennis balls at the other people. One day at the park, apparently, a guy shows up, kid, is inside his tank. He brought himself a lighter and some lighter fluid and lit all the tennis balls on fire as they're being shot out of the tank. That's just one story. This is full of these stories. And if for no other reason that it is more entertaining, it is narrated by John Hodgman. So it is wildly entertaining.
No, my attention is back.
Flaming tennis balls out of a golf cart? I'll tell you what, it is really worth watching. And obviously, there is a serious component to it because there were people who got killed at this park.
Yeah. Oh, killed, really?
Yeah, killed, and bad stuff happened. Yeah. So if you're interested in this, or if you have any memories, again, northeastern the United States in the 1980s, you've heard of this. Yeah, definitely give this a look.
Yeah, I believe they did a feature of this too. Didn't Johnny Knoxville do his own version of the story?
His was completely ficticious, but was based on the lore of this actual place.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So that's Class Action Park.
Class Action Park.
Class Action Park. Okay. So I'm gonna shift over into the fiction section, and I'm gonna tell you what. This is probably the weirdest thing on this list, and probably the most obscure. Yes, I'm throwing down that gauntlet, Rob. So this is a film I saw back in the 90s, and it was one of those things where it would have been a cult classic, except that it's an HBO original picture, and nobody was watching HBO in the 90s. Sure. So it was also done on a shoestring budget. So I will tell you that this is not the big, sumptuous Westworld style gigantic thing they had now. This was when HBO was a struggling network trying to survive. But every once in a while they come up with something fantastic. So this is from 1991. So it's a story of a detective in the 1940s. Going about his business, trying to solve there's a missing book, and there's a femme fatale. There's all this stuff in there. However, the difference is that in this world, everybody uses magic. So it's called Cast a Deadly Spell. So he's a guy. So the main actor is played by Fred Ward, and he's Harry Lovecraft. And so he's trying to track down this missing book, which is actually a cursed spell book. And so in that cast, not only you have David Warner, who, if anybody watching the 80s movies, you've seen him, and he was on Game of Thrones as well. He's also in Time Bandits. Julianne Moore is the sort of the femme fatale, and Clancy Brown is in this as well. It's one of my favorite sort of character actors. This is actually directed by Martin Campbell, who went on to direct GoldenEye.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, written by Joseph Dougherty, who did a bunch of the dramas that he was in. Did something with 30-something, and a lot of the sort of 80s, 90s dramas and stuff too. It's this great, weird little movie. I mean, it's not weird in terms of gross and stuff. It's actually like a pretty good noir story, and then like people will have like floating suitcases going past them, or like casually be talking to little animatronic demons and stuff. It's a strange little thing, but it was, like I said, don't go in expecting it to be Constantine. I guess I'm trying to think of what the big supernatural horror. They don't make a lot of those these days, but it's a cool, fun, weird little movie that I really, really enjoyed. So, Cast a Deadly Spell. It's an HBO original. I think you'll only find it on HBO.
I always love Fred Ward in. As we're recording this, obviously the recent passing of Chuck Yeager. He plays Gus Grissom in The Right Stuff in the original 1983 movie, and I love him in that. Fred Ward is awesome in that
Fred
movie,
Ward is great in that.
And he's been in just a really interesting set of performances. So.
Yeah.
Very cool. Okay, so so now this is weird, this pick, and I may be
oh, good. We're doing weird. I like weird.
Because this was a series. There's only one season of it, and it came out, I want to say, in 2015. So this is June, middle of the year, and I remember hearing about this. I was totally into it. I watched it, loved it. It's quirky. Let me tell you, it's awkward. It's not for kids. A couple of the things here we're mentioning. It's ranging kids and not for kids. Yeah. Let me just tell you, though, I loved the show, and they had lit it for a second season, and then they said no. And I'm not sure why. It is a series called The Brink.
Oh, okay. I don't know this.
So it basically and the idea was that it involved people from the United States State Department and a whole bunch of different characters in government relations, and that the first season was going to focus on a geopolitical crisis in Pakistan involving crazy intrigue. And then the idea was that every season it would be the same characters, but in a different scenario in a different part of the world, right? So the idea is that, hey, everything's falling apart. We're on the brink of disaster. How do we get out of it? Now you say to yourself, okay, wait, so that sounds kind of interesting. I don't know. It sounds like something that could be on Hulu or whatever. The cast for this was Jack Black and Tim Robbins as the two main characters.
Wow.
And I mean, it was just so well done, but it was, and again, I can't emphasize the fact that it was very quirky. They had other people in this, Asif Manvi.
Oh, I love Asif Manvi, yeah.
Thank you. Jamie Alexander was a recurring character. Michelle Gomez, John
Sif.
Larroquette. Yes,
John Larroquette. Oh man,
John Larroquette, who plays an amazing character. I won't even give anything away if you watch this, because you have to see his character, because you're like, oh, well, I really hope this is how things really are. It just was amazing, and they even got like the first. I think the pilot episode was directed by Jay Roach.
Wow. Okay.
So I mean, they really got people behind this, and I think they expected it to be a big deal, and it just didn't go anywhere. But if you want something, and let me just tell you, Michelle Gomez, who many people might know from various things. She plays the mistress from
Missy.
Doctor Who, Missy. Yeah. Let me tell you, okay, and it's not for kids. Her character, I mean, it gets weird. If you're looking for something that's just a departure from the normal political espionage like entertainment, this will probably do the trick. And you get to see Jack Black and Tim Robbins just chew up the screen. So anyway, The Brink.
So The Brink. All right. So my next pick is also of the one season wonders that came to this year. And this is, let me get you, because this show never made an impact, and I don't really understand why. Like, this should be on the list of some of the best one season wonder shows of all time, and it wasn't. So this was from 2008. It was a show that came out. They did like 8 episodes, and then nobody seems to know why it was canceled. Like everything I read online was sort of like, oh yeah, I just turned it away. So it's called the Number One Ladies Detective Agency. It's about a woman in Africa. She's from Africa, who basically decides to open a detective agency in her small town. So it's a small town detective show. It's just set in a village in Africa. And so, like, I'm trying to know how to explain this, because this is not a crime-ridden thing. This is not murder and rape and stealing. Like, it's basically like, I think my husband's cheating on me. Okay, well, I'll find out about that. Or someone stole my prized milking goat. So it's it's like, I don't want to say it's wholesome, but it's like, it's friendly. It's like, it's like she's not dealing with drug lords or anything. Like, she's dealing with helping people with their problems. And so it stars Jill Scott, who most people know as a singer. She's a fantastic singer, but actually did a little bit of acting too. And her sort of secretary, her sort of sidekick, is Annika Noni Rose. it's like the two of them together. It's like these two women just trying to help the people in their very small community. And it's gorgeous because it was actually shot, I think, in Botswana.
Oh, wow.
So you have these amazing vistas they have to go through, and it's just, and everybody is just like a normal person going about their normal lives. Like it was the first episode was actually directed by Anthony Minghella, and so if I had to do my armchair prediction of why it was canceled, it was because between the first, second season and what was going to be the second season, Anthony Minghella died. Anthony Minghella was the guy who directed English Patient and Talented Mr. Ripley. He did Cold Mountain. He did a bunch of stuff with the Muppets too. And he died. I think the heart went out of the show, and everybody just sort of walked away from the table a little bit. But it's only like 7 episodes, so 6 episodes in the pilot. So the pilot's sort of like an hour and a half or so. So I mean, it's it won't strain your eyes in terms of watching. You could probably knock it out in a weekend or whatever. And it's just a nice feel good show. I mean, really high quality performances, really good writing, and like in a setting you've never seen before. It's one of these things like I don't know why more people aren't putting this up there as one of the great shows that HBO ever put out. So the #1 ladies detective agency, and I recommend the books too. The books are very good as well, but this was a very good adaptation.
Very nice. As you were saying this, I was looking it up. When you search for this, make sure you put number as NO period.
NO, yeah.
The abbreviation, right? Because they don't even have, and they have no cross searching. If you type out the word number, you get nothing.
Yeah.
Well, you get like an episode of Sex and the City, which
they're new. They're still learning.
I mean, yeah. They're figuring that out. The SEO on that has got to go like that. Yeah. I've never heard of it.
From nothing else on this list, if you know, I would highly recommend checking it out because, like this, I can't think of anybody who wouldn't enjoy this.
Wow. Okay, so this is my 5th pick. Yeah, this is me rounding out my 5th.
Yep, this will be your last one.
Okay, now this is an odd one, and I'm going to tell you your mileage may vary on this, but when I knew that HBO Max was coming out, this was one of the first things I said I am watching, because I had seen it originally when it first came out on HBO back in 2011, so almost 10 years ago. It is a documentary called "God is the Bigger Elvis."
Oh, okay.
And if you don't know what the story about this is, so this is a story about Dolores Hart, who was an actress. In 1957, she co-starred with Elvis Presley in his picture "Loving You." And in this film, she kisses Elvis, and this is Elvis's first on-screen kiss. So it was a big deal for Elvis, for Elvis fans and stuff. And then I think she was in another film. She was in King Creole, so she was in another film with him. Beautiful actress, had a very nice relationship with Elvis Presley. Shortly after this, at the age of 24, she abandoned her career and became a Benedictine nun.
Oh, okay. Now I know this story.
Yes, and I will just tell you this. It doesn't matter what your affiliation is or anything. This is a beautiful, tender story about just the callings that people have in their lives and what they're drawn to. And the journeys that they take, the sacrifices that they make, all of it. I'm going to tell you, it is a beautifully well done story. And I love this. This is one of those things, again, this is this long history of HBO just putting money into projects that nobody else would. Nobody else is going to tell this story, right? And bravo to them. I mean, again, everyone's got a different take, I'm sure. This is the kind of stuff that HBO in their wisdom has spent wisely, and I think there's just some stuff here that you may enjoy. So if you're looking for an uplifting tale about life, this is something to check out. God is the Bigger Elvis.
That's really good. I know I've seen her a lot because in the 90s, every time Oscar season would roll around, she is a current, I believe she's still alive.
Yeah, yes.
As far as I know. So she is still a member of the Academy because she was a screen actor, so she's still part of the Academy. So they would bring her out at Oscar time and be like, what's the nun's pick for Best Picture? And that stuff. And so they would bring her out and like actually interview her in full habit about what movies were and what she was picking for her choice, because she got to vote on the Oscars.
Yeah, at the time of this recording, she is 82 years old in Chicago. And it's amazing. I mean, what an interesting life in that, because I believe it's cloistered. I believe she only, in fact, one of the most poignant endings, not to give anything away, because this is always in the promos. She had a man who she had a close personal relationship with, and at the time she had left to go for this change in her life, he still comes and visits her on the one day I think a year that she can leave and have a conversation with somebody.
Wow.
And my God, it is just unbelievable. Like, again, I think this was the first thing I watched the day that I activated my HBO Max subscription. So I love it so much. So there you go.
So my last pick also is of the only HBO would pay for this kind of thing, and actually it's a movie that both of us really enjoyed. But I got to tell you, this is a very, very small segment of the population who's going to like this. But this is one of the things I just love that this movie even exists, and I'm happy that now it's on HBO Max that everybody can see as much as they want. It's called The Late Shift. This is actually a fictionalized story. Telling about how David Letterman lost The Tonight Show. So it actually is based on a real book, like Bill Carter wrote the book, like he interviewed everybody and like did a fact, and then wrote the screenplay based on his book. So it's based in fact in the way that a lot of HBO like recount and things are based in fact, but it's still technically fictionalized. But it tells the story of like how Jay Leno sort of, I guess weaseled his way into getting Johnny Carson's slot, and about how the shifting of power. And at the end of the day, yes, it is just about a bunch of white dudes fighting for a job. But the fact that it's David Letterman and it's Jay Leno and that we have Johnny Carson, and I mean, like, all these people are major Hollywood players. If you know any of the people from the time, it's fascinating to see sort of the behind the scenes of, like, we're used to just seeing they stand up, they tell a couple of jokes about the president, and then they go and interview a starlet, and but what was going on behind the scenes and what these people were really like. It was a fascinating glimpse into that. I'm fascinated by that whole world, and especially this story. And this is the only time anyone has ever done anything like this. It was directed by Betty Thomas.
Yes.
Who has a lot of a really, really deep comedy resume that you can dig into. But yeah, it's once you get past the fact that they don't look exactly like the people, you can just roll with it. It's like you're talking about, it's a very fun glimpse into what life and corporate life was like back in the late 80s, early 90s.
Can I say something right now?
Yeah.
This is why I love doing shows with you and talking with you. No, because let me tell you this. I'm not even kidding. You heard my initial reaction, and then I just shut up because I just wanted you to just have it. This was the second thing I watched after God is the Bigger Elvis.
Yeah.
I love this, and it kills me. I even forgot to put it in the list.
See, I was almost going to do it first because I thought, Rob's going to get that one. I should probably do it early.
No, this is amazing, and I'm not kidding. Probably Lifetime. I think I've watched this maybe 7 or 8 times.
Yeah, wouldn't be surprised.
It's that good if you grew up. Now, if you have no connection to David Letterman or Jay Leno,
if you don't know who Johnny Carson is, then you're not going to know what the big thing is. But even if you're curious, like, who is this weird bearded guy on Netflix that's talking to Kanye?
Yes.
Watch The Late Shift. You can find out like the sort of the crux of his career.
No, and it's absolutely crazy. And honestly, there are some cautionary tales in here about just stardom.
Yep.
And negotiations and being loyal to people and being loyal to the right people and all this stuff. Well, I got to tell you, and there's great performances. You got
Kathy Bates.
Kathy Bates.
Yeah.
John Michael Higgins does an admirable David Letterman.
He really does.
I mean, it's not actually bad. And you know who my favorite character in this is? Stephen Gilborn, who is such an amazing character actor. He plays Peter LaSalle, who is one of David's great confidants. He is the one who basically orchestrates the final deal where he could have The Tonight Show because he was great. It is such a wonderful performance. Oh, man. And we won't talk about the villain in this.
And I will also, exactly. I will also say that this was also done for a budget. So, luckily,
totally.
Like 90% of the story is set in like office buildings. So that's fine. But like, there's a certain expectation of money spent that you have with HBO now, and that wasn't the case back at this period. I think Late Shift and Castelli Spell are of a piece where they were like given a certain amount of money to do something with.
If you here's the thing I'll tell you to watch. Here's the part you just have to watch just for any reason of it. Okay, Rich Little is playing Johnny Carson and does a spot on Johnny Carson. It's ridiculous, and Treat Williams is Michael Ovitz. I mean, I could just keep going on and on. Okay, but here's the part you want to see. Is like, why am I going to watch this? Scan to the part where all the different networks are pitching to David Letterman.
Right.
One of the most, I mean, then this was based on apparently what happened.
Yeah.
An amazing class in, if you've ever had a pitch for your company or yourself, learn and see how ridiculous some of the pitches are for what was to be a multi-million-dollar contract. Like,
yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, they were basically trying to crown the next king of television.
Well, and listen,
in their heads, that's what they was going for.
And because if you don't know what happened back then, Johnny Carson was the king of late night television.
Yes,
unlike anything we've never had anything like that since.
Or since. Yeah, he could make or break a career. Like
absolutely.
He would, you know, his approval would guarantee box office opening, a careers. Like, you know, he almost all of the comedians who went on to create shows like Seinfeld, like Drew Carey. Basically because they were given the approval of Johnny Carson, and people who were not, you know, they never got the television deals. They never got the movie deals.
He had no competition. There was no...
Yeah,
no,
nobody,
it's...
Yeah.
Oh, what a... Yes!
Yeah.
Master pick.
Yeah.
Master pick.
So, I had trouble sticking to 5, and I know you did too. So what are your sort of honorary mentions?
Okay, so this is ridiculous, and I'm going to apologize in advance. No, I have 2 more. Okay, and these are honorable mentions, and the reason why is they're going to make you laugh. They're both politically themed, because I used to work in politics. Well, no, you're going to laugh if you don't know about the second
mine
one.
Mine are definitely not politically themed.
Yeah, no, and let me just tell you something. When I say the words mileage may vary, your mileage may definitely vary on these, because these are not for everybody.
These are personal picks. Yeah.
These are personal picks. The one is from this year that came out earlier in 2020. It's called Agents of Chaos. It is a 2-part documentary directed by Alex Gibney, who is known for doing many hard-hitting, crazy documentaries about real-world controversies and other things. It revolves all around the Russian interference in the 2016 presidential election.
Oh, wow.
It's only 2 parts. It will scare you.
I'm sure they could do 2 more parts now.
I mean, dude, it's listen, whatever side you're on, I'm not even going to go anywhere in any of this. Like oh, dude, if you watch it, you'll feel a little bit. You'll watch this and then go back and watch like the Not So Late Show with Elmo, because that'll bring you back.
It'll cleanse your palate.
That'll cleanse your palate. And then the second one, which is also politically motivated, it is from 2012. It is Game Change. It is their version of the book by the same name that is about basically the telling of a portion of the 2008 presidential election with John McCain. It's basically telling the story of John McCain and Sarah Palin. Here's the reason, though, why I mention this. This part. I mentioned this documentary because I'm in it.
You are?
So the story. So the story is, I actually worked. I was a creative director on McCain in 2008. And in my many years of doing political stuff, I designed all the stuff. I designed the airplane. There is a CGI airplane that is my design that's in the show. I wish I offered.
Are you credited?
No, I'm not credited.
Oh.
Here. Well, no. See, it gets dicey here. So, like, they redesigned all the stuff I had designed, like the placards that are in front of podiums and the background banners and everything. And I even remember, I heard when they were putting this together, I even tried to put a note into somebody and said, if you want the files, I'll give you all the Illustrator files. Like, you don't have to remake anything. And I don't even put me in like the bottom of the credits.
Give me a special thanks. Yeah.
That's all I need. So then there's a really funny part. It's like if you go to like the last 3 or 4 minutes, it ends with election night. And they used archival footage of the actual speech that he gives over at the Arizona Biltmore. There's one shot. It's plain as day. You can see Margie and I in the crowd. If you pause it, because it was dark and we were right in the lights, and you can absolutely see my wife and I. And if I point it out, you will go, yeah, there's you and Margie. There they are right there. So that's how I'm in it, but it's kind of funny.
Oh, wow. Yeah. You're on HBO Max. You're streaming on HBO Max right now.
I mean, for 2 seconds in a crowd. But yes. So there you go.
All right. Well, I don't have anything that cool.
No, it's not that cool.
My alternates are something I think both of us, there's a couple things that we heavily overlap in, and one of those is wrestling. And HBO Max had a magnificent documentary called Andre the Giant.
Oh, that's another awesome one.
That was the first thing that I watched when I got my HBO Max subscription. Yes. And it is amazing. Like, even if you're just a fan of his from The Princess Bride, you need to see this, because it tells his whole life. And how amazing that man was and the things he had to go through and endure and how kind he was. And like, there is not a person in this documentary who has a bad thing to say about Andre the Giant.
Yeah.
Like he's saying like he is like, when they say gentle giant, that is this, he is the reason why. So yeah, it is. And of course, like also like they, and it's sad at the end because you know how all these documentaries have to end, except that his legacy lives on, and you know people still love Andre the Giant. So yeah, it's just called Andre the Giant, directed by Jason Heer, and so you check it out in the documentary section. It is a solid hour and a half, and even if you're not a wrestling fan, it's worth your time.
No, you hit it right on the head. Not only if you're a wrestling fan, but if you're a Princess Bride fan, absolutely watch it. And one of the things that you will really get is that it's amazing what he went through for the last multiple years of his career.
Yeah.
He was in agony and he was performing and doing all this stuff. And it's incredible story of perseverance. And
they talk, and if you're a Princess Bride fan, they do talk a lot about Princess Bride, and everybody who they talk to like just has wonderful glowing stories to tell about him and how he was on that set, and how basically he thought of that as one of the best things he'd ever done.
Yes,
like how much he loved being there with them, and how much he liked the final product of it too. So he was a big thing of that. And then my other like little thing is I'm a big fan of Pee Wee Herman. So what a lot of people don't know is Pee Wee Herman, the character, came out of the Groundlings, and so that character sort of broke out just from Paul Rubens doing a wacky character in a sketch. I think it was a dating game riff. And so he came up with like, who'd be the worst person to be in a dating game? And he created Pee Wee Herman essentially to be the worst person that someone would be as a contestant. And the character broke out so fast that he said, I never created another character because that one was so great. I just did that for them. And so from that, he created a stage show of that. So then that became the Pee Wee Herman show, was a stage show, and it was like the hottest ticket in town at the time. Like they basically just did that, and they had that at a small theater in L.A. Then it actually went to Broadway for a while, and from that's how he got Pee Wee's Playhouse. But the Pee Wee Herman show was actually an adult-themed version of that, not in terms of like capital A adult, but like more like the jokes and the sentiment were much more adult aimed than the very kid friendly version that we saw on CBS on Saturday mornings. Most people know Paul Rubens' story. Then he went away for a while, and then when he came back, and Pee Wee came back, he actually revised the show and then did on Broadway. So that was what was cool, is that HBO then recorded it. So in 2011, they actually recorded the full version of the Pee Wee Herman show with multiple cameras and stuff too. And there's a bunch of like a lot of people from the original show who went on to Pee Wee's Playhouse then came back into this. So like the genie is the same guy and that kind of thing. And some people who have sort of aged out or like gotten huge, like the fact that Lawrence Fishburne was the original Cowboy Curtis. So obviously Lawrence Fishburne's not going to come and do Broadway for 8 shows for this thing. So they found somebody else to do a great, another great performer. I'll let that be a surprise for those of you who are animation fans. You're going to be excited. But they actually you get to see the whole show as if you're like Hamilton, like you're front row center, seeing a great. So if you want to see another great Broadway show, the Pee Wee Herman show on Broadway is streaming on HBO Max. So check that out too.
Did not know. Nope. That just got added to my list. Yeah, that's amazing.
That's a good one. So I say we could go on because I actually had a bunch of stuff that I'm like oh, I can't talk about this. I can't talk about this. And like we could just even do one just on series. So there's a lot of great stuff that HBO Max does. And say one of the things we talked about when we were sort of planning this is I didn't even want to talk about the stuff that's streaming because the streaming wars are so weird right now that we can't say like you should watch The Dark Knight because at time of recording, I have no idea if The Dark Knight is still going to be there because their movies are moving around so fast that I wanted to focus on the stuff that are solid pieces of HBO Max and of the HBO family that are not going anywhere.
Right. Well, we've even said, because we're big Doctor Who fans,
yeah,
at the time of recording, they still have the full, and I think they have them for a while, the rights to all of 2005 from the reboot of Doctor Who. And might I add, a fantastic organization to them as well.
Oh,
like if you want to go back and watch Doctor Who, this is actually maybe the best way to do it if you're interested from the last 15 years. Because they've done a really nice job. They've curated this well.
15 years. Holy cow. It really is.
Crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, from Eccleston's first appearance to...
Yeah.
Man.
Oh, good stuff. Well, there's some stuff to
Yeah, exactly. Between those 10 plus 4, like 14 pictures total. I think hopefully you can find something that you like. And if you do, we'd really like to hear about it. So we're on all the social media stuff. You can we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, all that kind of stuff. If you find something you really liked, Discord, if you find something you liked, I'd really like to know so that we could, because that really gives us a sense of joy that we actually found something that someone went, oh, I watched the show, I never heard of it, I really liked it, thanks. Like, that makes me feel really good. So that's why we do these things, is trying to give you cool stuff to watch that other people can.
If you have watched anything we've suggested and you thought it was a complete waste of your time, keep it to yourself.
Yeah, you can keep it to yourself. Yeah, we don't need to hear that.
The Brink. What were you thinking? What was this about? No, that won't be the one.
So all these things are streaming now. So as you finish Wonder Woman 1984 and are looking for more things while you're waiting for Justice League, the Snyder Cut to come out, there's a lot of really good stuff you can get into. So hopefully we've steered you towards some good stuff.
Awesome.
So we'll be back hopefully in the near future to give you another Take 10 on some other stuff. So thanks for listening. Enjoy the rest of our next real family of podcasts. Enough said.
Bye.
End program.
I love the conversations that so many of our hosts have had on their shows. Steve and JJ on Trailer Rewind, Ray and Ocean on Silver Linings, even Tommy's short-lived Wait, Hear Me Out.
So many listeners want to make sure they've watched the movie before tuning in to any discussion on our podcasts. Well, the best way to watch the movie is to look it up on our watch page.
Our watch page lists all the movies that we have discussed on all the shows from the Next Reel's family of podcasts, including the one you're listening to right now. It's your one-stop shop for Apple and Amazon links where you can rent or buy the movie.
Trailer Rewind movies like Raw,
The Nice Guys,
The Peanut Butter Falcon,
or Free Fire.
No, Wait, Hear Me Out movies like Josie and the Pussycats or Return of the Living Dead.
Or Silver Linings movies like Repo Men, Daredevil, and The Wolfman.
Plus, by using those links to rent or purchase movies, Apple and Amazon will show us a little bit of love, which allows you to support our family of shows with minimal effort.
It's a great way to support the show and find something to watch.
That's right. Head over to thenextreel.com/watch to pick out your next movie and start watching today.